Good morning. As we're anticipating that we may get open pretty soon, I thought I would take the rest of this week to do some review of the pottery procedures. And so we can also use this for some of you guys who may be just deciding you'd like to take pottery. So it is a review. I want to first start by just talking about the different stages of clay. So we get clay and it's very movable. And so at this stage, it's called plastic because it is very movable. And if it starts drying, the terminology is it loses its plasticity. All right, then we make something out of it and it starts to dry. So this one hasn't been going very long, but it'll start to dry. So right now it's very plastic and it's movable. But as this starts to dry, it becomes where it's not as movable, but it still looks like this color, and that's called leather hard. And at that stage, you can still put things together, but because it still has moisture in it. So this color and this color, okay, you can see are different in that this one's darker, but it's the same clay because this has moisture in it. So at this stage, you can still add things, you can put things on it. This stage is called green ware. And I know it's not green, but that's just the terminology that they call it. At this stage, it's very fragile. So if you have a cup, you don't want to pick it up with the handle because it can break and put little hairline cracks in it. So at this stage, you can, if it breaks, you can just put it back and recycle it, and we add water, turn it back into clay, and we start all over. It's very, very difficult, almost impossible, if you break something to try to put a piece back on it at this stage. It usually just never works. I tell people it's not going to work, and people still try it, and most of the time it doesn't work. But so at this stage, you want to just be real easy with it. Hold it gently and make sure that you don't bump it. Greenware state. We fire it in a kiln, and it takes about 8 to 10 hours to fire up and about 20 hours to cool down. And when it comes out, it'll come out in this stage. And this is called Bisque. And this has been fired. It's the same clay as the gray, but now it's white. And it kind of makes a little tinging sound if you hit on it. So at this stage, it doesn't, if you can put water in it, and it will not go back to being clay. So it'll hold water, okay? And so it's called Bisque. And so at this stage, you can design it, put your paint on it, and then you fire it, and it becomes glazeware. This is a pot by Maggie. So this one's a glazeware because it has some of our crystal glazes on it. So those are the different stages of clay. Now, I'm going to show you as far as one of the hand-built methods. There's 3 hand-built methods of which you can work on clay. One is pinch, one is slab, and one is coil. And so for the next few days, we're going to talk about those different kinds of techniques, how we do them, and then we'll talk about how you can combine them together. So when you first start with a piece of clay, you have to kind of knead it. So you're going to push down, pull back, push down, pull back. I'm going to stand up so that you can kind of see closer. So you're going to push back like this, and you push back, and you get the air pockets out, and it'll pretty much start making a coil, kind of like a shell like. And as it goes around, it kind of pops out those air pockets. Then we're going to take a piece about the size of a golf ball and roll it together so that it's nice and compacted. And a pinch pot is just that. It's something that you're doing with your fingers. So you're going to pinch it. You don't need any extra tools at all. And it's something that you might use as far as just to kind of get acquainted with the clay, or if you're making flowers or something to go on the outside, or you're making a sculpture and you're making ears. So there's some things you just have to do with your fingers. So we're going to start with the clay in my hand, and I'm going to take my thumb. See how your thumb's kind of curved? And you're going to push it into the clay, and then you use these as kind of your push fingers, and this is kind of your support, and we're going to turn, pinch, turn, pinch, turn, pinch. Okay, so now I'm going to change the camera so you can kind of like see what I'm doing here a little bit better. Okay, so we're going to keep on going and just around. One of the things about clay is it's really a relaxing thing. You don't get in a big hurry about it. And you're just gonna pinch it, pinch it, pinch it. And our ideal width that we want is about 1/4 of an inch. The reason for that is actually after it dries, it's going to be a little bit thinner than that because it's going to shrink as the water gets out of it. So you're going to start pinching this. And I need one of those cutter things. Can you bring one of those cutter things over? If you need to cut up a pot, I'll show you how to do that too. If you want to do a little bit of water, right, perfect. Is that you can do just a little bit, but don't do a lot of water at this stage because of the fact that it'll get too sloppy. So you can kind of feel it all the way around. And then I'm going to show you what we're talking about as far as 1/4 of an inch. So you could kind of curve this like that. And then just to show you what we're talking about is that you can cut this in half. And you can see that you want the walls of the pot to be pretty even. Okay, so you don't want it to be thicker here and thinner here. The reason is as it dries, if you have a thicker piece here and a thinner piece here, it'll dry at different lengths of time. In other words, and so it tends to have some cracking that way if it doesn't dry evenly. Now, that's a pinch pot. Okay, so I'm going to show you now the next thing that you might be learning if you were taking the class here in person. All right, so clay, when you want to put it back together again, a lot of times people think, well, it's wet. I can just stick it together and it's going to stay. The problem is there's nothing holding that. And so when it's dry, this will just fall off because there's nothing holding it. So we have to be able to put some little strokes in here so that that clay has something to hold on to. So we're going to take our scratcher tool and we're going to scratch this up and scratch this up. And then we'll add a little water to both sides. And if we want to put it back together again, then we put it close and kind of wiggle it. Call that crosshatch, water, and wiggle. So we're putting it together, wiggling it, and then that clay has something to attach itself to. And you can smooth it back together because this is a pinch pot. And because it's wet enough, it'll be just fine. It'll be just back to normal. All right, so that is a pinch pot. Tomorrow we're going to talk about coil pots. See you then, and don't forget to wash your hands.